Not that you guys probably ever really thought this about the videos that I do, but this is going to be just a bright, shining example of what happens when you don't write your episodes beforehand and you start to wing it. And it's not a cigar review, and it's on semi-specific topics. This is going to be fun. What's up, guys? Thank you for joining me for another Friday episode. This is not going to be a cigar review. But instead, I'm going to try and delve, not crazy deep, but delve a little bit into frequently asked questions about cigars. Now, these may not be the typical run-of-the-mill questions that I think that I've heard people ask before, but it's more of kind of questions that I think recently I have been asked, and questions that I think I've heard other people ask other people, and so on and so forth. I could go on and get more convoluted as time goes on, but all in all, I'm going to kind of touch on, some of these questions that maybe you've been asking, or maybe you've never thought to ask, or I don't know, or maybe you'll have a different answer for it this time if you're asked the question because of my insight. So anyways, doesn't matter, because we're just gonna cue that music and get into this, what may turn out to be an absolute shit show. So we'll find out. What's up, everybody? You're watching Dad Smoking Cigars, presented by stogielives.com and Casa Cuevas Cigars, from our Casa to yours. Make sure that's right there in the forefront. Anyways, thanks for joining me for a new Friday episode. Decided to do something a little different yet again. Got a pretty decent response to the video about the recent FDA choice, or the announcement that the FDA made with the intentions to implement a ban on can't even remember what the video is about. Wow. The decision to implement a ban on menthol cigarettes and flavored cigars. So if you haven't seen that, then go ahead and click the link over here, and you can check that video out. But definitely watch this video first. Don't watch that yet. Watch this first. Not that one. This one. Not that. So odds are the majority of you that watch this channel are already established cigar smokers, or you've been smoking for a little while, maybe you've been smoking for years, decades even. Doesn't really matter. Most of you that watch the channel are cigar smokers. Then again, I point this channel to a lot of people who are curious about cigar smoking, mostly people I work with, or people who, when they find out that I'm a cigar smoker and I have a YouTube channel about smoking cigars, then they get a little curious and say, can I check it out? And I'm like, of course, this is what you look for, Dad Smoking Cigars, etc. And so I get the usual questions, not on a frequent basis, but when people find out that I am interested in cigar smoking, that I smoke cigars on the regular, then they have some questions. And I think some of these you might have heard yourself. Then again, maybe you haven't heard these questions asked before, that you haven't been asked them yourself. So we'll just have to wait, see, and find out, and hopefully might have actually a little bit of insight on how to answer these questions and all that good stuff. So let's proceed with the questions. Question number one is probably one that all of us have been asked at some point. And it's kind of a twofold question. It's number one, have you tried Cuban cigars? And number two, are they like as amazing as I've heard, or are they like the holy grail of cigars? I know that's kind of maybe almost a threefold question, but it basically asks the same thing. Cuban cigars, are they awesome? Like I've heard all the stories, the legends, the myths, and all of that. And I'm going to be delving more into my personal opinion right now, because I know of a number of people who smoke a lot of Cubans, some even mostly Cubans, others strictly Cubans, and I can't imagine ever resigning myself, and yes, I use the word resigning myself to smoking only ever one type of cigar ever for the rest of my life, even if it was like different brands, but ultimately the same kind of cigar, all Cubans, and Cubans are not cheap. Even if you know where to get them and have them shipped to the US, which is a little tricky because there's still a lot of those embargoes left over from when we weren't friendly with Cuba. We're on friendlier terms now that it's no longer under a dictatorship. You can bring Cuban cigars into the country if you visit Cuba, but there are still limitations. Like, I believe there's only a certain price point that you can only go up to a certain price point if you go to Cuba. And you're bringing cigars in, and you have to, I think you have to show a receipt or something like that. My in-laws brought me back a handful once when they went to Cuba, which was very sweet. And yeah, so, but just to kind of answer the question for anyone who might be curious, I have smoked Cubans on a number of occasions. I have some in my humidor still, and I will say that there have been a handful of Cubans that have been absolutely fantastic, and I enjoyed them, and they were the Cubans that you hear about, the Cubans that you dream about, and I mean Cuban cigars. But that you would imagine a Cuban to taste like so smooth and rich, and it just has all. Cuban cigars have a unique flavor to them, and they're strictly Cuban tobacco from, grown from Cuban seed. And but here's the thing: not all Cubans are made equal. And again, we're talking about cigars here. Not all Cuban cigars are made equal. The problem, in my opinion, is that because Cuban cigars, or cigars made in Cuba, are a major export from that country, meaning that it is a huge cash cow for Cuba. Unfortunately, the product itself suffers from overproduction. It is cranked out too hard too fast. The cigars don't really get a chance to mature and age and sit like a cigar should. I've heard it said, and I may be misquoting, but that a cigar should have at least maybe 3 to 4 years to age and rest. And that's after it's been made. That's after it's been made and created, before it actually goes out onto the shelves or wherever it's taken to be sold. Before it goes out to market, basically. A cigar should have a significant amount of time to rest, anywhere from 3 to 4 years. At least that's what I remember hearing. But I think a lot of Cubans are just being cranked out way too fast, way too willy-nilly. They don't get draw tested. They don't get to be taste tested. And because they're being cranked out at such record speed, the quality suffers. I have had some absolutely abysmal Cuban cigars. They were terrible. They didn't taste good. The construction was absolute crap. There's even cigars where I could barely get any smoke through the cigar because of how tightly wrapped it was, and it just was terrible. And there's just this kind of legend and clout surrounding Cuban cigars that people say, well, I mean, aren't they amazing? Well, sometimes yes, but not always. And again, not all Cuban cigars are made equal. And the Cuban cigar you may end up smoking, now if you have nothing to, no point of reference, it may seem okay to you. But having smoked as many cigars as I have smoked, and with different flavors and quality and experience, there have been a handful of Cuban cigars that were excellent, and then the rest were just kind of hit and miss. So yeah, Cubans can be great, and other times they can be absolutely just not good and not worth your money. Better to buy something with a lower price point that's easier to get access to, like your local brick and mortar or even an online retailer. Odds are you're going to get a good quality cigar, not made in Cuba, but it doesn't have to be good. That's pretty much my thoughts on the matter for Cuban cigars. Question number 2. Now, this isn't necessarily a question I myself have been asked, but it's kind of an amalgamation of different questions I have been asked regarding cigars, and when you compare them to, say, cigarettes or even vape. But let's just focus on cigarettes right now, because everyone and their mom for the longest time smoked cigarettes, especially, I mean, just way back into our country's history and beyond, and then other countries and things like that. Cigarettes were just something that people would do constantly. You think about like the early 1900s, you see all these pictures of celebrities constantly smoking cigarettes and things like that. And then throughout that period of history, cigarette smoking was one of the great American pastimes, if you could call it that. Then the studies came out and the research was done, and people were starting to see the negative health effects for smoking cigarettes in the long term. I mean, once upon a time, it wasn't seen as a bad thing and might even be actually beneficial for your health to smoke cigarettes. I may be talking out my behind, but it's crazy what was considered healthy once upon a time in our country. You think about some of the medicines that were put out. There was once upon a time where heroin was actually included in certain medicines that were supposed to treat, certain ailments and maladies and whatever the hell you want to, whatever hell you want to list in terms of like sickness and stuff. I mean, cocaine was actually in Coca-Cola way back when. So, I mean, a lot's changed in terms of what we put out there for people to consume. But cigarettes were seen as, not that bad for your health until they found out that it was very bad for your health. And then, of course, there's cigars, which a lot of people think, well, cigarettes are tobacco, cigars are tobacco. Well, there's actually quite a bit of difference between the two. And if you've watched any of my other videos and things I've talked about, again, going into the video about the cigarette and cigar ban and all that stuff, I put a little information there if you want to check that out. I'll try to sum it up right here, right now, in very, very brief points. In that cigarettes are loaded with chemicals, in addition to the, at least now at this point in our history, genetically modified tobacco, which means it's not all natural tobacco at all. And there's a bunch of crap that gets loaded into a single cigarette, which is really, I mean, they say nicotine is an addictive chemical. It really has more to do with the abundance of all the other chemicals that are put into a cigarette, and that's why people get hooked on them, and that's why they keep smoking. Now, whereas I'm not saying that it is impossible to get addicted to cigars, I'm not saying that it is impossible to have negative health effects from smoking cigars, but as they say about, a number of things in life, everything in moderation. But the usage pattern is very different because it takes much longer to smoke a single cigar than it does, even a handful of cigarettes. 2, premium cigars are made with all natural tobacco, aged, fermented, and it's a lot like a fine spirit, a whiskey, or even a rum or a gin or anything like that. It is set to mature and ferment and age so that way it reaches a certain, it makes sure the experience is going to be excellent when you try it. And obviously there could be potential health risks when it comes to smoking cigars, but I've quoted some of the research, and the last I checked, it would take a lot, and I mean a lot of cigar smoking for you to even have a remote chance of getting cancer. Smoking 1 cigar a day, every day, you have less than a 2% chance of developing any kind of cancer from that habit alone. And as for my smoking frequency, I smoke at most 4 cigars a week. Not a lot. I don't smoke a lot. I would love to smoke more, but I don't have the opportunity. I got other things going on. I don't always have time to sit down and smoke a cigar as opposed to right now. So the usage pattern is different. What goes into each product is different. Cigars are all natural aged fermented tobacco, whereas cigarettes are, yes, tobacco, but at this point in time genetically modified and loaded with a crap ton of chemicals that are incredibly harmful for you, including but not limited to ammonia. Yes, ammonia is inside cigarettes, and I think most of us know that by now, but if you didn't, now you do, and that's just disgusting. So there are natural ammonias that occur in cigars, but they're aged out, and also when you light them and you blow into the cigar, and not puff, but actually blow while you're lighting it, you actually push out all excess ammonias or anything else that might be in the cigar, and it actually freshens up the flavor of the cigar. It makes it taste very, very good. So anyway, nice little point that I wanted to add there at the end.
Question number 3, and this one is one that I was actually told by my dad, no less. Now, this is something that I don't think he does really anymore. He once upon a time did it. Don't think he does it anymore. But he once told me that it was okay to leave a cigar for a good long while, and you could come back to it later. There was even cigars he would leave on the patio overnight unfinished, maybe about halfway finished, left them resting on say a stinky ashtray like this, resting on one of the little, rest spots, and he came back to it the next day and smoked it. Now, I have done this once. because the experience was not, I mean, it was terrible. I made the mistake of leaving it out during the daytime, drying it the hell out. It was a cigar that was like, I was really enjoying and one that I was really looking forward to. And it was a cigar that after that one was gone, I'd never get it again because unfortunately the company that made it is out of business. It's a company that was called the Cigars by Nicholas J. It was the first manufacturer of cigars that was generous and kind enough to send us some free samples of cigars, and we reviewed them, tried them, etc. And yeah, I was really disappointed about that one. It just was terrible after that. It wasn't good. And I've had dried out cigars before because I just had, you know, it was during a time when I barely ever had cigars in my possession. So there you have it. But the question is it okay to leave your cigars out for a while and then come back to them? Well, if you're going to leave them there for maybe like an hour or something like that and then come back to them, I think that's pretty acceptable. But anything longer than that and you're not going to enjoy it as much, it's not going to be that good. If you want to try it, then that is completely your prerogative. If you want to leave it for a while in a spot that maybe won't get dried out as much, spot you know it won't get blasted by sunlight or something like that, I don't know, it's not a pleasant taste after that. The cigar is more or less ruined because after you light it up, I mean, it's already starting to dry out because of the heat passing through it, and that's when it's being consumed. That's when you're supposed to consume it. And if you let it burn out and you then come back to it after it's been sitting for a while, it's not really, it's not very good. So, and also, pro tip, do not stamp out your cigars. Don't do like a cigarette, or don't step on them to put them out. Just let them burn out. If it gets down to the nub or wherever you decide to finish it, let it just burn out on its own. Please do not put it out. It just bad etiquette, and it gets smoke pluming everywhere. So yeah, don't do that. Now this next one, I don't know if it's a question that's ever been asked. I'm sure it's been asked somewhere. The only reason why I bring this up is because I've seen pictures of it being done, and it makes me just want to claw my eyes out or find the people who did it and claw their eyes out, which I know sounds like a pretty aggressive and harsh response to what I'm about to describe. But when you hear it, those of you who are very dedicated cigar smokers, you are going to, when you think about it, or if you ever conceive of somebody doing that, then you might feel the same way. And I guess the question would be is if my cigars dry out, do I just run them under some water? Now, right now, I know a bunch of you are picturing what I'm picturing, which is like some photos that were floating around the internet for a while among the cigar community, where it shows like a dude or somebody. Now, I don't know if this person was doing it to rehydrate their cigars, or maybe it was like a wife punishing her husband for something. I don't know what I don't know, but it was like a bunch of cigars in a sink in like a plastic tray, and they were like running water all over them, and I wanted to cry so badly because I was just like, oh my god, because I just think about if it was my cigar collection and like somebody took them and just put them in the sink, and like even like I don't know what would be worse, if it was something that was done out of spite, or if it was done like somebody trying to be helpful. Oh, I noticed your cigars were drying out, so I put them in the sink and ran water over them. It's like, no, oh my gosh, no. Again, I don't know if that's a question that you've ever been asked, or if it's ever been asked at any point in time. I'm sure it has, because obviously, clearly it's happened. I don't know if the pics were a gag, like a joke. I hope they were, but it looked pretty real to me. Somebody who decided to just douse their cigars in water. Don't do that. Even if it's distilled water, doesn't matter, because distilled water won't do anything to rehydrate your cigars unless it's actually like I have a cigar oasis in my wine door just across from me over here, and I pour it into the sponge for the oasis. I put it together, I plug it in, and it starts to humidify my humidor to the proper level and keep the cigars at a proper humidity. And it has nothing to do with putting water on them. The distilled water is just turned into it's just humidifying liquid essentially. So it's giving my cigars a proper climate and humidity to stay fresh, and so that way when I light them up, they're not going to explode because they're dry as hell. So yeah, no, do not ever run your cigars under water under any circumstance unless you want to absolutely destroy your cigar collection. And yeah, nobody wants that. The final question, and I think this is relevant. I don't know why I saved this one for last. I was trying to come up with some questions that, you know, they are asked on a fairly regular basis. They're not your typical FAQs when it comes to cigar smoking. But I think this one is relevant because, like, I mentioned it in another cigar video when it was top 10 cigar don'ts. And if you want to check out that video, you can go ahead and click the link right over here. But I remember watching a video from a few years back when Arnold Schwarzenegger was on this night show with Jimmy Fallon. And Jimmy's relating a story to the audience about how when Arnold took him to the Havana Room, one of the most exclusive cigar clubs anywhere, much less here in California. And he took them to the Havana Room, and I guess Jimmy Fallon started licking his cigar, and it was a $100 Cuban cigar. And he started licking it, and Arnold basically describes just shock and horror witnessing the scene. And Jimmy said he had heard somewhere that, I don't know where the hell he heard it from. I don't think this was something that Google would have popped up, because I like to think Google's smarter than that. But one of the things that he said he heard was that if you lick the cigar, it has a slower burn. Now, I witnessed this once, and it was in a television show, and I am very hesitant to mention this person. But there's a certain series, I'm not going to even mention the name of the actor or the series, but there's a certain series that has a certain type of snake in the title. It revolves around martial arts. It's a spin-off of a martial art movie about a martial arts child, and the actor in question is technically the villain of the series. And in one scene, and I saw a couple people ripping on him, and I have mad respect for this guy, which made me feel awful because these guys were tearing him to shreds. And it shows him kind of like just really going to town on the cap and the upper part of the cigar, like moistening it with his mouth. If your cigar is properly humidified and it is in the proper conditions to keep it fresh, you don't need to do that shit. You don't need to do that at all. It's just don't do it. Because one it's just it's unsightly, and it doesn't look right. That's not a good look. It looks inappropriate from the outside, and two, it's unnecessary. If the cigar has been stored properly and it's in the right conditions, you don't need to do that. So yeah, it's moot. So don't do that. You don't need to lick your cigar to give it a slower burn. I mean, depending on the tobacco, how it's been blended, conditions and stuff, it'll burn slow enough on its own. You don't need to add your spit to the mix. And yeah, there's only so much that your spit's going to be good for, and this situation is not one of them. So anyways, yeah, don't do that. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video of my own little list of 5 frequently asked questions regarding cigars. I know these are questions that get asked, and I've heard them being asked in one way, shape, or form, or they're assumptions, and that might be something I throw in the title. 5 cigar FAQs / assumptions. I don't know. Maybe will it work? I don't know. You'll find out by the time the video is published, which should be this Friday. If you're watching it, it's Friday, so rejoice! It's Friday. Light up a cigar, have a drink, and enjoy yourself. So. Anyways, guys, I hope you liked it. I hope it was fun. I hope it was entertaining. I hope it was informative. If you had any of these questions in mind, I hope that I was able to answer them and give a little bit of insight, albeit maybe a little skewed, but I had fun. So I hope you had fun too. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for me, guys. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Please be sure to like and subscribe. That helps out the channel a lot, makes the channel more visible, and so that way other people who are interested in cigar content can find Dad Smoking Cigars on YouTube. And again, hoping for 1,000 subscribers by July 13th, which is the 3-year anniversary of the launch of Dad Smoking Cigars, excuse me. And so yeah, that is the goal. I'm going to be doing a big giveaway, more details to come. So yeah, thank you guys for your support, all of you who are watching. Yeah, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video, share it with someone you think might be interested, and also be sure to comment down below. I reply to every single comment you guys leave, and I love interacting with you, so please do that. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Hey guys, thanks again for tuning into this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and also follow Dad Smoking Cigars on dads_smoking_cigars on Instagram, and be sure to check us out on Facebook. Until then, guys, stay smoky, and I'll see you in the next one.